Okay, here we are again. We have leapt into monsters and magical sticks. We're on chapter 1, page 23, into hypnosis lightly. Hypnosis, the first step. There's no such thing as hypnosis may appear to be a strange subtitle for a book written by a man who has been in the field of clinical hypnosis for many years. The title is sure to displease those who firmly believe that hypnosis exists, and the book itself will displease those who firmly believe that hypnosis does not exist. I firmly believe that hypnosis is just a state, south of Oregon and north of Washington, and it really doesn't exist except in people's minds. Paul Watzlawick, in his excellent book, The Language of Change, states, "There's no such thing as piano playing. I've tried it several times and nothing came of it." One problem in discussing or writing about the process of hypnosis is that through the years, so many definitions of what hypnosis is or is not have been hooked into the word itself, that people have preconceived notions and ideas. It might be said that they have been hypnotized into believing whatever it is they believe about hypnotists. It is not the purpose of this book to give an academic definition of hypnosis. There are many fine texts and case books that do an excellent job of giving several different and conflicting definitions of hypnosis. These definitions, people are free to reject or accept them as they see fit. If, however, hypnosis means a special state in which a person is put into some deep mystical state and then loses volition over their being because of another person called a hypnotist, creates such a powerful, overwhelming suggestion that the victim or subject is helpless to resist, then there is no such thing as hypnosis. If that power existed, I would not be writing this book nor working at my profession. I would simply walk into any large corporation and cause the chief executive officer to give me the business. If, however, we consider hypnosis as a generic term that encompasses all forms of altered consciousness and do not consider hypnosis as a mystical state, we may then get a more clear picture that feels more comfortable. To further illustrate the use of the word hypnosis as a generic term that encompasses many states, let's consider a state called sleep. We recognize there is light sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep, restless sleep, etc. However, all of these are contained under the category called sleep. Experts still argue over just what produces sleep and why people sleep in so many ways, but no one denies the existence of the sleep state. If you will picture a horizontal line and think of one end as conscious awareness and the other as sleep, you can then envision and grasp the many gradients between these two opposite points. You might accept hypnosis as an area between these two poles at which an individual's awareness of his surroundings are diminished, while awareness of internal processes, feelings, thoughts, and pictures are increased. Another simile for hypnosis can be found in electricity. We all know that electricity exists, and yet the experts still argue over what electricity really is. The only generally accepted notion is that electricity is a form of energy. You may consider hypnotic techniques as a group of methods for the production of a different form of energy in the brain, and the hypnotic state a conduit for directing that energy toward the accomplishment of goals. Hypnosis as communication. Included in our definition of hypnosis is any form of communication in which a person or persons, whether a hypnotist, wife, husband, teacher, or whatever, uses words, tonality, expressions, or movement that elicit and or evoke within another person an internal experience, and that experience becomes a reality of its own. For example, if I write or speak the word rose, you might think of a particular flower, perhaps red in color. I could mean a person named Rose, and someone else might remember someone getting up. If I change the meaning to a beautiful red rose, one person might remember a special occasion, the feelings, sounds, pictures, smells, and in effect relive the entire experience. Yet another person might make a terrible face because they are allergic to roses. I can remember an incident during which I was having a conversation with a lovely woman, and another woman came to join us. I suddenly felt myself feeling about 4 years old, seeing an aunt who to me was gargantuan. I felt the fear of being overpowered by her size and saw her in a polka dot dress. After a moment, I shook my head and returned to the present to realize that the second woman's perfume reminded me of my aunt's perfume. The smell alone regressed me to that childhood experience. There's no such thing as hypnosis, and you need a deep trance and powerful suggestion to produce regression. Really? One technique of so-called traditional hypnosis is called negative hallucination. This is produced by putting someone in a hypnotic state and suggesting, for example, that they will not see or hear some person or object. A so-called good subject would come out of the trance and not see or hear as suggested. How many times have you called your children for dinner and they have responded by not responding? An individual comes into your office stating, I can't make a decision. It's just impossible. That too is a negative hallucination. That individual decided to seek you out, decided what route to take, and decided to enter into a transaction with you. Or take the individual who states, everybody hates me, they always have. Obviously, if she or he has lived to tell their tale, someone in all probability cared for and helped them. But she has excluded that portion of history from her reality. Just because someone makes a face at you, it doesn't mean they're not constipated. Again, there's no such thing as hypnosis, or perhaps it is all hypnosis. A flat world. Once upon a time, people believed that the world was flat. They were told this by people in authority. As a result, they built their whole world predicated on staying within the confines of a flat world. If we restrict ourselves to the old definitions of hypnosis, then we are experiencing a flat world. Our world becomes round when we step back, see and hear the so-called hypnotic phenomenon occur all around us without the need of a trance. Someone says to you, I can't be successful, I always fail. Yet they know how to walk, they know how to talk, they know how to do those things and more successfully. We are talking about a belief system, a suggestion or suggestions that have been accepted and acted upon even at the expense of distorting reality. To recap, if you consider hypnosis as a specific state that always includes a deep trance, then there's no such thing as hypnosis. If, however, you use hypnosis as a generic term to encompass anything that alters perception or changes consciousness, then you can realize that hypnosis is just a word. Within that word are things like meditation, fantasy, guided imagery, deep muscle relaxation, anything that encourages or precipitates a person's turning inward and having an inner experience that becomes more profound or more important than the outer consensual reality. Since we all live in the same world and we have more or less the same opportunities, it is sad that people use this thing that doesn't exist to convince themselves that their choices do not exist. Hopefully, this book will help you become aware of how to use these same methods differently, to take the same techniques a person uses to build limits and use those techniques to build new choices and new horizons. Okay, we're on chapter 2. It's a shorty. Metaphor, change, life. Illusions. Las Vegas, Nevada. The lights are bright. A feeling of excitement hangs in the air. A young couple on their first trip, looking forward to learning and playing blackjack, walk into a beautiful casino. They see a player sitting at a blackjack table with thousands of dollars in $100 chips. They watch and listen with fascination. The player is betting $300 or $400 a hand, winning and losing. They study the player's method, see his playing style until they grasp it all, knowing with that much money in front of him that he has to be an expert. They take their limited funds, sit down, play, and lose everything. They then decide that there must be something wrong with them if copying an expert leads to such failure. If only they would talk to the casino manager, they might learn that the expert is really the pizza king of Chicago. He knows everything about pizza and nothing about blackjack. He has enough money to buy large sums of chips, and appearances are deceiving. Even a monkey will get dealt a winning hand from time to time. The couple's mistake was to assume based on appearances. Once upon a time, there was a little boy and girl who heard some adults use big words and saw them do amazing things, drive a car, vote, fight, and much more. The little boy and girl assumed that since they knew such things, they must be experts at life and parenting. The little boy and little girl set out to copy that adults only to suffer pain and frustration. Those adults were experts at pizza, but the children were too small to look beyond appearances. Rose bushes. Once upon a time, there were two little rose bushes named Judy and Jim. These rose bushes were comfortable in a nursery when two people came in and took Judy, claiming they were expert gardeners and knew a great deal about rose bushes. And they did. They planted Judy in rich soil with the best combination of sunshine, water, and nourishment. They kept the weeds and bugs away and handled Judy with kindness. Judy flourished and grew big and beautiful roses. And if rose bushes could feel, Judy was happy. Two other people went into the nursery and took Jim, stating that they were expert gardeners and knew everything about roses. But they were really pizza kings from Chicago. They planted Jim in sandy soil, salty soil with too much heat in the day and too much cold at the night. They watered Jim too much and then too little, and they did nothing about the weeds and bugs. In spite of these things, Jim survived, but was wilted, stunted, and sorry looking. Jim looked across the field at Judy and saw her beauty and decided, if a rose bush can decide, that the problem was he was just basically defective and no damn good. Now, dear reader, if you could talk to a rose bush, I'm confident you would say, Jim, it's not you. The experts were not experts, and it's your environment that's the problem. But to what purpose? A little rose bush can't walk, drive a car, or work. However, time goes by and Jim, by hook and by crook, learns to walk, talk, drive a car, and work. He pulls himself out of the crummy environment and moves to where Judy is, the rich, fertile environment. And guess what? Wrong. Jim continues to wilt and grow little ugly roses. Jim is so convinced that he's defective that he decided, what's the use? It won't do any good to even try. In addition, he carries his past environment with him and knows that the rich environment doesn't exist. Well, what can you expect from a rose bush? There once was a rhesus monkey who was put in a special cage. This cage had red, yellow, and green squares. After several days, an experimenter set it up so that the red squares gave off intermittent shocks, causing the monkey much pain. The monkey became anxious, but soon learned to avoid the red square. Next, the experimenter caused the red and yellow squares to give off intermittent shocks, and the monkey acted as if he was a manic depressive, alternating from hyperanxiety to depression and withdrawal. The monkey soon learned to avoid the red and yellow squares, and then all the squares were electrified. The little monkey began to bite itself, beat its head against the bars, and defecate on himself. You might say the little monkey had been driven crazy. This experiment took a month. He was then transferred to a second cage with a white floor. Soft music was played. He was touched and held and fed. Within a short time, he calmed down, and within 2 weeks, he was playful and exploring his cage. He could not be seen as different from a monkey from a rhesus population that had not been subjected to the experiment. Well, what do you expect from a dumb monkey? He's not as smart as a man. He didn't know how to hold onto the past forever, nor continue to anticipate disaster. He only knew how to adapt to changing circumstances. When he was put back into the first cage, he was anxious for 2 days, but after assuring himself there were no shocks, he began to be as playful in that cage too. Well, as I pointed out, monkeys aren't as smart as men, maybe just smarter than rose bushes. If, as you read the above meta-8s, a metaphor within a metaphor within a metaphor, you found yourself thinking, remembering, connecting, seeking, and understanding, it was only intended. To understand a metaphor, you must, in the most cases, go into your own history. Remember those situations that look similar and remember those words. But there's no such thing as hypnosis. That's the end of the chapter.